artist by commission. And his love of travel has given him prime opportunities to paint. He's lived 3 years in the south of France, has painted on location in Italy, which he'll tell you about his upcoming workshop next year. And he also has painted in the Netherlands, France, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and the Czech Republic. He's a signature member of the American Watercolor Society, National Watercolor Society, and the Transparent Watercolor Society of America, and Watercolor West. He's in demand as a judge and juror, and so I don't think he needs any further introduction. Here's Frank. Welcome, Frank.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Before I start, can anybody see me? I just see a dark wall right now.
Yeah, we see you.
Okay.
No, it's good.
Can you spotlight him?
Yeah, I'll spotlight him.
Okay. So yeah, here I am. I did just to get this out of the way before we do the demo. I wanted to introduce my workshop next year in Italy just for a minute and show a few, maybe a few pictures if anybody's interested. I know the dollar is weak and that these trips are expensive, but this is a 10-day and usually they're not that long and everything is included, so you can't really, it's still a really good deal. And it's a beautiful area in Tuscany, outside Lucca. So I'm going to try to share my screen here and show a few pictures. So this is actually the thing I'm going to paint.
Wow.
I'll talk about that in a little bit, but here's, for instance, this is a picture of the villa. So that's where we stay. It's fully renovated. It's a really cool place. I've stayed there before and I can vouch for the couple. They do a really good job. So just a few more. This is the town of Lucca. You see the typical buildings that we're going to be painting, of course. And by the way, this is an all media workshop, so you don't have to paint watercolor. You can paint gouache, you can paint oils. I do both demos in watercolor and oil, actually. So you get to see different techniques, different mediums, basically, where we pick subject matter depending on medium, for instance, which is a big thing in painting, and most watercolor painters never really learn how to do that. So this was the pool, and this is one of the day trips. So there's lots of day trips, pretty much one every day, or so a very interesting.
So Frank, we only see one image.
You're only seeing the first image for some reason.
Oh, okay. Well, let me see. I'll show you this page at least. Could you see this?
Well, I see the building. We see the building.
Okay, so something's not right then. Maybe I need to stop the share, redo it. Yeah, I should have, I would have had to redo everything. So now you can see actually what you should be able to see the page where the
Yes.
workshop is
Yeah.
shown. And you can see a few pictures here too if you scroll down. I'm just going to make this simple. I'll put the link into the chat.
Okay, perfect.
And you can also see the daily schedule here. So there's lots of information. I don't want to spend a lot of time with this, obviously.
Is this on your website?
No.
No. So maybe we'll put the link in the chat for everybody.
Yeah, there's a link on my website too, but I'll just put it in here. Here it is. Let's see. I just put it there. So in case anybody's interested,
I
they
see
can
it.
they
You
can
got
get
it.
more information about it or email me if they have any questions. It'd be go too far to talk about this for a long time. I want to get to the demo. So I pre-recorded the demo, which makes it easier because I can I can talk about it while it's running, and I can answer questions while it's running and talk about what colors I use and all that good stuff. But first, I'll show you, well, how do I get rid of this? Here we go. This picture was sort of the inspiration. This is near my house. This is the Hollister Peak, which is a pretty famous, um, yeah, you can call it a mountain near San Luis Obispo. Um, Also already painted by Edgar Payne 150 years ago or whatever. So it is definitely a really, it's between San Luis Obispo basically and Morro Bay. So, and I painted there many times on site, so I know this place pretty well. And anyway, so that's gonna be what I'm gonna be painting. Okay. And then we'll go, let me see. I guess I have to open, bear with me here, please. I gotta figure out how to open this now. Thought I had it open already, but oh, here it is. Okay, so here we go. So this is, you should be able to see my paper now. There's a very faint drawing. That sort of tells the story. My drawings are barely visible, tell you the truth. I I make them very faint, so you don't really see much of the pencil. But you can kind of see it a little bit. So I'm gonna just start this and talk about what's gonna happen. So I'm a big fan of mixing primary colors up first. I always do that. This is sort of my ritual to get into the painting mode. And before I start with this picture, I'll pre-wet this paper, and I do it with the brush, but I also do it with the sprayer. You'll see that it's sort of a combination of both. Both now I'm using the sprayer. So just to get this paper wet, you can do it any way you want, really. And I should open the chat here in case there's any questions. So basically, like I said, the primary is always like cobalt blue, uh, then carmine, probably yellow ochre or raw sienna. So, and of course, you mix them together, you make a gray. So that's what you're seeing right now. The gray goes up first for the clouds. Everything is pretty wet. Uh, but I basically paint the sky first because in watercolor, you work from light to dark. So the sky, most of the time, the sky is the lightest value. So you would do the sky first. So So after painting the clouds, you don't see them. So you paint the sky next to it, then you start seeing them basically. That's sort of the
What color
idea.
blue you're using, Frank?
That's a horizon blue. One of my,
Horizon blue?
yeah, one of my favorite colors ever.
Okay.
It's kind of looks a little bit like cerulean. And of course, you tilt
Makes
the
that.
paper here, where in all kinds of directions to get get the flow. With watercolor, you want to use a lot of water, which is always a problem in workshops when students paint because I never seem to use enough water. Uh, but this is sort of the idea, and then you go in with the sort of a wet brush and make a little design here and there to get the clouds to look a certain way. But these are very faint, and actually they're not really clouds. They're called the marine layer, and you live in California, you guys, you know what that means. I don't have to explain that.
Fog.
What's the paper you're using? A question from the membership members.
Uh, do I see
That
these here?
Arches?
What paper? This is a
Yeah,
Saunders. Saunders.
Saunders. It's on a block, right?
It's on a block, yeah.
And
I
it's
actually use probably nothing else. I used to use a lot of arches, but Saunders seems to be, it's a little more forgiving to paint on, in my opinion. I really like this paper. Seems to stay longer, seems to stay wet longer too. So you can see I'm working wet on this mountain and just putting in some different, color hues that sort of as an underpainting. I like to call this my underpainting.
so it's the cold press or rough paper.
It's cold press. I don't even think they have rough. Well, maybe they
Okay.
do. I'm not sure. But not for they don't have it for the blocks. You can only get
Okay.
it in cold press, I think. But so this is a 12 by 16, the size. So, these colors go in, and as you can see, they kind of mingle and mix. And I'll just work my way down the page. A lot of people have that system, as opposed to painting wet on dry and then coming in. For me, the first step is always wet on wet. I prefer wet on wet in general because I like the edges better. Edges are sort of a really big problem with watercolor painting. Um, you get hard edges very easily, obviously, because of the fast drying time. So to avoid those, I paint wet on wet as long as I can, basically. The hard edge is always like the last resort. Often hard to do, especially outside, but yeah, well, outside's possible too. It depends on the weather. Outside sometimes it can actually be easier when it's a little moisture in the air, then the paper stays pretty wet and you have plenty of time.
Oh, wet there, not here.
I always joke that, there's a reason watercolor is big in England, because the weather is shit. So it's perfect to paint watercolor. California, not so much. So you can see I'm getting a little darker here. It's sort of a mix between Viridian and Violet. Getting this darker sections in for the lower part of the mountain without really painting the mountain. And I make sure I keep it wet. And then you see you're getting to the tips of these buildings here where I basically start painting around things. Um, like the tips of the roof tips and rooftops and things that basically are lighter than what I'm painting right now. Let's put it that way.
So Frank, can you also talk about the colors you're using?
It's still Viridian. Now it's warming it up. I'm warming it up a little more. I'll probably put some yellow ochre into it. You can see it's cooler on top, so more blue violet, and then it turns a little bit warmer. So I like to think of colors as warm and cool. That's all I'm interested in. It doesn't really matter what the color is called. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What's your
It's
favorite brand?
Wow, that's a difficult question. Probably Holbein, and for lighter colors, for brighter colors, Daniel Smith, I want to say.
Okay.
But I like Holbein also with oil painting. Um, they make just really good blues, I have to say.
And someone wants to know what your brush is and who makes your brush.
That's
Looks
a
like
Da
a
Vinci
mop brush.
brush. Yeah, Da Vinci Casaneo. It's a very old one, so now the handles are black. But that was a prototype they made for me uh,
Okay.
probably 5 years ago. Oh no, longer, 10 years ago. Um, but it's officially called Casaneo. You find it. I think Blick has it too. Pretty
Is it
sure.
sable, squirrel, or a mixture?
Synthetic, fully synthetic.
Synthetic. Okay.
Yeah. No animals hurt.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very good brush. Very holds, as you can see, holds a lot of water.
Yeah.
Incredible amounts actually. So now there's a darker mountain behind this, and then the greens sort of get lighter, so it's kind of difficult to keep those apart. So I'm dropping some warmer colors into that cool color, and then I try to paint a little building there at the same time. Uh, that's why I switched to the smaller brush and kind of drop a little water into it, go around this truck here. That's the back of a pickup truck. And drop more of the warmer colors. As I go down, I basically get warmer and warmer with temperature. So that means I'm mixing in. You can kind of see my mixes on the right side, really. And I pick everything up from cad yellow to raw sienna, yellow ochre, burnt sienna even. It depends on what kind of green you want. You can mix you can mix in, yellows of all types, even orange, even reds, but red is tricky, then it gets brown really quick, so you have to be careful with the red. But I like to see the mixes of the colors come together on the paper. That's basically key. You have to bring it over and let it mix on the paper. You can see where the building's gonna sit, soften some edges and kind of looks a little weird right now. You can't really see what's that gonna be in the end, but there's basically in the middle here, there's a tree that covers up half of this barn. So that's why I let that um, let that green bleed down. And then I go into this foreground. So still wet, you can see. And then I get, uh, well, I guess first I did this barn. Yeah, I actually, again, like I said, I try to avoid the hard edges. So I go in with the barn color right away. Um, Also on the wet, keep that wet. And yeah, lighten some things up here. So a bunch of stuff sitting there, a bunch of buildings. And let's see what's next. I can't remember actually. It's so weird when you paint, you're in the moment, you don't really know. You just act basically. So this looks pretty red right now, but I start with something and then I usually modify it, and let it run, put other colors into it. Let me see if there's any other questions here. No, I already answered that. Okay. There's another bush sitting here. So it's very common for me to work with like 2 or 3 brushes at the same time. Um, it's very helpful because then I have to remix and clean and remix. I leave that color on the brush and then it's easier to get back to the color that I used just a few seconds before because it's so crucial to keep it wet. I don't want to waste time, remixing these things. As you can see, I'm changing the green up. So in the beginning it was red, now it's turning a little more green. But I'm talking about this California green, you know what I'm saying? It's it's more like burnt grass green.
The Golden State.
The Golden State green, yeah, whatever color that is, right?
Hey, we could probably make a tube of that color.
Yeah, somebody should make it.
Yeah.
We can probably sell it for those of us who live here. We have to deal with it all the time.
Well, the people on the East Coast will love it.
Right? So see, it's mixing its own color there, and that's basically the whole first step. I do this on the wet, and now I'm adding a few more textural things into it just to create some texture. Also repeating some of the colors in the sky here, see it? Some of that violet, blue goes in. I like to see this sort of mingling together, and then it makes for a better unity in the picture, like as opposed to painting, the mountains separate and the grass separate and the bushes separate. Everything will look separate, right? In nature, there is no such thing. In nature, there's no separation. That's all an illusion in our heads. So the more you can paint it like that, the better it will look, or the more natural it will look. So let this set a little bit and flick some water into it. You can see it coming now. Um, yeah, it's got a pretty good feel as an underpainting. And while it's wet, I'll soften some edges where I need to. Adding some shadows into that building. That I do with the same color I used for the sky there. See, the sky color is still there. I use that same color for the shadows on the buildings. So that's basically the clouds you paint into the buildings, which is kind of weird, and this is just a faint little thing, but this will help a lot because you can already see the shapes coming to life, really, and have a good connection to the background, and it's not looking like a cutout even at this stage. So I'm really conscious of that when I paint. Okay, so I think that was the first step. And then we'll go in with the second step. So now this picture is dry. Okay. So I recorded it in stages because you no need to sit around and wait. So this is dry now. This is how it dried. You know how watercolor works. It always dries a little lighter, which is annoying, but that's how the medium is. Uh, Once again, I'm starting probably pre-mixing the same sky colors. You can see how faint everything is. And also, when I paint the mountains in the second step, I want to have the sky soft, because what happens a lot in California is the marine layer rolls in and out, and it covers up the mountain halfway, so the clouds roll over the mountains. I'm sure you've seen it a million times. And this gives it that beautiful soft look. That's what I'm trying to paint here. So again, what I'm using now is like a Japanese calligraphy brush. I use those a lot. They make great marks. I learned that in China when I painted there. Actually, with Lee, I painted in China, since Joe mentioned him earlier. And I noticed when I painted in China that a lot of people just use one brush to paint the whole painting. And that really impressed me. Here we are, the Westerners, needing 15 brushes to paint a picture. And then you see this Chinese dude sitting there and doing it all with one brush. So I went out and bought those brushes, needless to say, and I loved them ever since. It's just amazing. You can basically shape them into any shape, right? Like you can make a round brush with them. You can make a rigger. You can make a flat brush with them. So you can see me doing these clouds here, just a little more strength into it, so they show up better. I really just painted to the clouds, you could argue. Now I'm painting this background. That's a mix of, I don't remember, but it's probably ultramarine violet and something else, probably cobalt blue from the looks of it. So I want this to be in the background cooler, and then as it goes into the mountain, so I'm painting to the right now and basically on both sides of it, and bringing this into this area behind the buildings to find a way to articulate that mountain in the background, which is not an easy task because you have to keep both sides sort of wet. You can see I'm adding more viridian, and this time a lot stronger. I truly don't want to do more than 2 steps, so this step should get me the final value. And then paint around stuff like the.
I did.
There you go.
Yes.
Did it.
Yay.
Okay.
Okay, go for it.
We're back. Okay, here we are. Nothing missed. That's great that it's recorded. And you can see I'm playing with color here, so now I'm going more with the violet. You know, cooler colors tend to recede, so you play with the colors, uh, and then the mountain itself has this weird color. I don't even know what to call it. It's almost like a reddish, pinkish glow to it. Th- so and it's very faint. So I'm painting that in, and you can see I sprayed, so I got the soft edge on top. And that gives me a little more time because then now it's wet again. I can go back in, uh, keep the edge wet, keep it soft, trying to prevent it from moving up. So, you got to have your eyes everywhere at once, pretty much. Whoever said that watercolor painting is relaxing was a total liar. There's nothing relaxing about watercolor painting whatsoever.
It's relaxing watching you.
Yeah, well, if you watch it, it's kind of entertaining, but painting it, you always feel like, oh my God, I don't have any time. So yeah, keep that edge wet there, and then I go work my way over to the right. Be very meticulous about going around my buildings. Warming it up again. You can see I added just that yellow ochre into it. And let it run. Okay. Paper towel is always a good tool to have handy to get rid of an edge where you don't want it. And now I'm going cooler and darker on the right side because there's another hill on the right just beyond these buildings there. So that's going darker. So and the darker mix is ultraviolet. And as far as I remember, I mixed some green in it too, Viridian. That's probably it. I'm not sure. Maybe a little bit of the black, what is it called here? The neutral tint, which is really just the black. But very little. It's not a color you want to use much because it looks very tired, very, it mixes well with other colors, but on its own, it kind of looks dull. It's kind of a little bit like Payne's gray or something like that. You don't want to use that too much. Um, but you can see I spared this tree behind the building, so there's no other way to do it than to paint around it. Um, and bring these squiggles down and turn them into something, or that looks like something. It's always the challenge, but you could see even with a big brush, you can make pretty fine marks. Yeah, more of the same color because you can see the right side is not quite dark enough, so it needs to be a little darker. So I go in on the wet and mix that in more. So we're basically now in this middle range, maybe value-wise, we're probably not even in the lower mid-range. This is still pretty light, everything. But we have some darks now. So this is the side of the barn. I mixed uh, this red with carmine and some black, I think, some neutral tint. It's not very dark. It looks dark as you put it on. Again, you know how it works. Watercolor dries a lot lighter, so you have to sort of overcompensate sometimes. Otherwise, you're constantly too light, and that can be a problem too. And then bring these, you know, make some marks for shadows here. You know, sort of connecting this middle ground to the foreground is sort of the goal. So there's no there's a visual connection between the foreground and the middle ground. I think that's very important. So we don't have, again, disconnected sections everywhere. So
So
you can
Frank,
see,
you have your board at an angle.
yeah, it's a little bit of an angle. You can
How
kind
much?
of see it. The palette, one person asked about the palette. That's a Holbein 1000. It's an old palette. I don't know if they still make it. It's a porcelain metal palette, porcelain coated metal palette. But there's others available. It's just a tool. I'm not attached to it. It breaks down, I get another one. It's a good palette though. I don't like the plastic palettes much.
So someone's asking why you have only two edges taped on the block and not the others.
Yeah, that was a coincidence. I was planning it out and I drew it up and then I figured out, well, I didn't want to redraw it because I had too much foreground. So I lost a little bit of the foreground and a little bit of the side just to make it a better composition, basically.
Okay.
Or it's like a lot of people paint 12/16 outside and then they frame it as an 11 by 14. So there's room to play, basically. You can change if you put a mat on, let's say, and you can play with the mat board a little bit that way. This is kind of like the same idea with this tape.
Right.
Yeah, so you see, I paint into the buildings a little bit and then into the bushes, the trees, and so forth. But you can kind of get a feel for what I'm after, basically. I know in the photograph you don't really see the colors of the barn much, or there's not that much light on the buildings, of course. So this is just all made up stuff, basically. But a lot we all do that outside when we paint. We see a scene, we like the idea about it, but then there's things you need to do to make it actually a painting. So you either edit stuff out, you add things to it, you change some things here and there, make it personal. How would you like to see the scene, without losing the spirit of it? So that's probably a good way to approach painting in general. Um, yeah, and then at this stage, I will spend time actually almost finishing some of these shapes like buildings and adding shadows into it. Some details that absolutely need to be there, to make it look like, oh yeah, that's three-dimensional. That uh, here I'm adding this shadow under the eaves there that sort of connects into this bush. It doesn't matter if it's red. You know, we can have a little red in that bush. No one's ever gonna see it. Uh, Again, the connection is much more important than the color. Um, so this middle barn, you can see it's sort of facing us, but then you see the left side of it also. Um, so that's sort of the main building for me because it just has the light on the front. So that's the building you most likely look at. So if you want to call that a focal point, maybe. Uh, to me, the real focal point is Hollister Peak because that's the background hill. Because I really like that mountain and it looks great in any light. So now here I'm putting a little bit of color onto the roofs. Yeah, we're about halfway through already. So here I was just checking whether my background wash is dry. I think it was probably still wet because I'm not painting there. So you can see saving that tree was sort of like in the beginning you didn't really see what I was doing there, but now it's very clear what I was trying to do earlier by painting around there. And then there's a bigger, darker tree between the red barn and the left building. So I'm making marks for that right now. But everything is still wet, so I can't really paint um, any. I mean, I will go in with darks, but it'll probably move a little, which is really what I prefer. Like I said, I avoid hard edges. Even here, it's like I like the dark side against the red front of the barn. So making the back a little darker, but really I leave this edge here a little open into the background. So I'm very conscious of these things. And those are things you might not even see when you're looking at my paintings, but I think they play on a different level. So going in with this medium darks, and I realized they don't line up the two sides, so I have to change that a little bit. But I'm not leaving these details there for the end. I paint them while I paint what I paint. So, you can still see some of the washes are wet. And that way it gives me this freedom to have an edge open or bring some of that paint into it. All of the things you can't do when it's dry. Once it's dry, it's dry. And there's some of those posts and pretty detailed things already, even though there's a whole wash to go. I think it's easier to sort of bring it together every time you do a step in the painting, let it dry, but then you do the step and make it so you pull it together during the step and not just leave it for the final parts to do the whole finishing work. I think that's, first of all, it's overwhelming. And then a lot of times it's much easier if you do it right away because uh, you have the wet paint there and you might as well use it. So
So
that's how I
Frank,
see it.
someone's asking what size brush that is that you're holding right now.
That's a tiny, oh God, I can't even tell you actually. Yeah,
That like a
I'm not sure
six.
what size that was. Sorry. I can't see it anymore. It's all used up, like all worn down.
Oh, it's an old brush.
Yeah, it's a really old brush. I actually prefer those old brushes often because you can also shape them into different shapes and then they make different kind of edges. and you can still have a really sharp edge with them. But they're so frayed, so like at the end. But that's a really good thing for watercolor painting, I think. So now darker things for the trees. Sort of, there's a little bit of a balancy thing going within this tree left of the red barn, and then that darker hill on the right side. So going in for this tree that blocks this barn up a little. Okay. There's a question. Let's see. Do you have something magical you feel when you feel the painting is done? I like that. Sometimes, yeah, for sure. I mean, you never know what you're gonna get, right? So, and when things work out, it's always a great feeling. I mean, we fool ourselves to think we have control, but with watercolor, good luck, right? It always has its own mind. It does things, but yeah, when things work out, it's really a good feeling for sure. But that goes for any medium. Oil painting is the same. You never know what you get, and sometimes it looks great halfway through, and then you still screw it up, and other times it looks terrible halfway through, and in the end it looks really good. So you just have to stick with it and don't think about any of those things. So now I'm painting this foreground in. Again, it's pretty light. So I need to target it, but I don't go all the way up to the wet stuff. So I leave a little bit of a gap there just to get this wet. And let's see, I can't remember. It's basically mostly yellow ochre, as you can see, a little bit of iridium in there maybe. Has a sort of a greenish tinge to it. Um, just to strengthen this foreground and add more textural parts into it. That's sort of the idea here. And again, textural parts, so you flick paint into it. The grass we have everywhere. They didn't cut the grass apparently, so it's quite long. Yeah, just have the foreground. Um, and it sort of ties into value-wise, it ties into with everything else right now. So may have to come back one more time, but that's to be decided later. For now, we're just go step by step. This is only the second wash on top of it, so okay. Let me remember if I think I'm doing more work on the buildings now. So I'm using So I'm trying to paint this shadow under the eaves for good now. It's basically violet blue, and then I put in a little bit of yellow ochre so it gets gray. Um, yeah, you can vary the color within it. It's or take some of it out, and just to get the right value going here, or the final value. You can see the right building on the right side is still way too light. Now I'm going in with that same color. Oh, that was a little ultra blue, I think. This is the horizon blue that I just picked up there. And you see it on the upper right side of the palette. It's basically mostly white paint. There's a little phthalo blue in it. That's what that color is.
Who makes it?
You can easily make it yourself, but this is Holbein.
Okay.
Phthalo blue is an interesting color because you can get the yellow shade and the green shade. So those are all very different, and they make very different blues that you can use for different applications. Like I find myself using it a lot. Also when I paint water, off or landscapes, distant landscapes, like distant hills. Uh, it's almost like a go-to color, like cobalt blue. Cobalt blue is, it can only get you so far. But if you look into the sky color, it looks pretty accurate on the screen, actually. If you look the sky colors, that is the horizon blue, almost like straight from the tube, and that's another version of phthalo blue. It's just mostly white paint. That's scratching some of the grass in there. Not too much, just 4 or 5 scratches. That's it. And that's the tool I use. Yeah, a couple lines go in under the roofs, under the eaves, um, to delineate where the roof ends. But again, just here and there. Same with the tree, you know, draw in a few lines, lose a few lines, suggest it, much more powerful than painting every branch and trying to really paint a tree. In fact, the more you try to paint something in particular, the less it seems to work. So when I do my painting classes, I actually start the class like that. I talk about edges first, or painting things you can name. So the best way to talk about painting is really to pretend you're an alien painter coming to Earth You're from outer space. You land on Earth. You don't know what anything is called. You don't know what anything is. You have never seen any of these shapes before. You don't know what a house is, what a car is, none of these things. And then you just start painting it. You're gonna paint it way better than when you know what you're painting. Because when you know what you're painting, you have a concept in your head about what it should look like. And that concept is wrong. It's an illusion. And painting it's like a magic trick. You paint something and then it looks like there's something there, where in reality we all know this, we're just looking at a piece of paper here. So that was one of the best tips I've ever gotten in my it was actually a drawing teacher who taught me that. Draw like you don't know anything you're drawing. Best tip ever. If you can do it. You can do it for 2 minutes, for maybe 20 seconds, and then you start thinking about it again. It's like trying to meditate. The concept of meditation is so simple, anyone can understand it. But can you do it? Whole different thing. So again, I'm going back. This is my final step. One more time into this mountain and really work out the rock structure now without, getting too much involved into it, because I really want to have that feel of lost and found edge there in the end. So this is always a tricky part. These parts where you try to finish something, it could go both ways. You could do too much and then it doesn't really look the way you want it to, or you can do too little and you have to start redoing it. Um, so that takes a little it takes patience, basically. You have to be very patient because most of the mountain is already there. So all I need is a little bit of a form, like here and there, a little bit of an edge here and there. But you'll see those are very thin washes, of course. Needless to say, they carry very little paint now, carry mostly water. But it gets me it gets it away from just being all blurry, basically, right? But you can't have that either, you have to have some definition. Do you see the phthalo blue here? Oh no, that's cobalt blue, sorry. Just finishing up this top of the mountain. And as it dries, it gets weaker and weaker. You'll see it. It's like it's almost disappearing again in a moment, which is what I want. You can kind of see how versatile these brushes are, especially on the smaller scale, we can make really fine marks with it, like I just did now, and but you can also keep a bigger wash going too, like that, like right now. It's all the same brush. And sneaking more of these semi-soft edges in, when the paper starts to set up, you get, and then you have very little water on your brush, you get these edges that are so elusive. They're hard to they're hard to get. But you can also see the way I paint this, it's, the mountain and the sky are very much one thing. They're very much connected. Um, the clouds feel like they go over it partly, so that sort of feel is what I'm trying to achieve here. And watercolor in a way is very good at that kind of thing, I think. Because it has that quality to it where you have that flowy water basically doing all the work for you. You're not really painting these shapes in, they just sort of happen, which is the best part about the medium, in my opinion. I like using these different blues in this mountain. I don't know if you can see this. They're more like a violety blue to the left, and then on the right, it's more like that phthalo blue in the shadow. So it has these two sides to it. I feel like it has a better impact because it's not all just one color up there otherwise. And then this needs strengthening, of course, with the foreground, the middle ground here with
Getting
the
it?
trees reaching up. That needs to be a little stronger now. So that's green, what's that color called? Oh, geez, it's another Holbein color, green, cobalt green. That's right, cobalt green and neutral tint.
Nice color.
Yeah, I love that color. And in that color, the black works really well. It mixes nicely into it, and it keeps the character of the color, even though it completely changes it in a way. But see, we're almost there. Couple more minutes.
Looks great.
Thank you. Yeah, and this is a scene that really has that feel in real life too. It like this mountain disappears, like and comes back, and that was actually one of the titles for the painting. Hollister disappearing act because that's what Hollister does. It peeks in and out of the clouds or the marine layer.
So is
It's
that
pretty
what the
cool.
mountain is called? Hollister?
Hollister Peak, yeah.
Okay.
You can look it up. You find Edgar Payne's painting too. A couple of shadows on top of the roof, cast shadows, and I think I put them well, on the left side, not so much, but I also made these two roofs different colors because otherwise the left building and the right building would be a little too close. I mean, they look pretty much the same, but in order to change that a little bit, I made the right building a different color, the roof, just for variety. But what else? Let's see, there's a question. Mount Fuji behaves the same way. Yeah, probably. Yeah. The Fuji's is enormous though compared to Hollister Peak. Hollister Peak is not it's not very big.
That whole series of peaks down there, I think they're the Seven Sisters. They're all
That's it.
they're all volcanic plugs, which means
Oh,
lava. That peak you're painting is a lava flow that came up into the volcano and then froze, plugged up the volcano, and then over the years the volcano is actually eroded and leaves that plug behind.
no kidding. Okay, good
Yeah.
good to know. Wow.
So all seven of those peaks, starting with Morro Bay and the plug down in Morro Bay, then those all extend all the way back into San Luis Obispo and
That's
Edward
it.
Valley.
Yep. Yeah, you can see them really well when I fly out of San Luis Obispo. The plane sort of flies over all of them,
Yeah,
and you can look down, you can actually see exactly the little peaks. It's really cool.
yeah, and they're all hikeable. You can hike
Yes,
top of almost all of them.
true. Yep. So just final details going in. You know, I don't think there's much left to do at this point. There's my trusty old brush again. That's burnt umber here, going into the phthalo. Oh, just for some darks under that car. Okay. And under this tree. Yeah, a lot of times, little marks you make here and there, they're very important because they kind of add a little darkness into a certain spot, or they just accentuate certain part of a shape you're painting on. And yeah, like this is, for instance, that's too light, so I needed to darken that. Things like that at the end, where you sort of adjust your values and colors a little bit, as far as possible with watercolor, let's say, because in watercolor you really can't make any big changes. You can get it a little darker, but if I wanted to decide to change the color of the barn to a yellow now, yeah, not going to happen. If I paint oil, it's the easiest thing. So just some more of these poles and things, some darks. Um, yeah, but otherwise pretty much done. Look how light the mountain dried. It really is in the background, which is very important, of course. Oh, some of those poles, yeah. I put those in with my broken old brush actually. That's my rigger. I just hold it sideways, and I don't want those posts to be overly important, so I would never make them very dark. I think that would be terrible. So they just have a bit of the function of sort of, again, connecting shapes, right? They're reaching into the sky there on the left. So another way to connect one with the other. Um, and then finally some scraping in a couple of darks. Again, with the old brush holding sideways, you see it makes some dry brush strokes there. Um, Pretty hard to do with a new brush actually, because you want to use your old brushes for that. You don't want to ruin the new brush. Let's see if maybe more questions. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, great. Yeah, we're almost done. Oh, I'm doing this one with white because it's in the shade. But again, it's very weak. It's barely there. Yeah, thanks for coming, guys. Oh, Lindy's here too. Awesome. Thank you, Judith. Thank you, Kim. Yeah, just literally I'm almost at the end. I think it's another 3 minutes. I might go in and get some of the rock shapes back that I lost earlier, but it's half of it I take off again, as you can see with my paper towel.
Frank, do you still have this painting?
I have it, yeah. I just finished it like 2 days ago.
Uh, can you send us a shot of it and we'll include
Yeah.
it in the video as a finished painting?
Oh yeah, yeah, I'll do that for
Great.
sure.
You can send it to me.
Okay. Yeah, probably not tonight, tomorrow. Is that
No,
okay?
there's no rush. There's no rush.
Okay. So what else is there to do? Nothing. I think I'm done. Let's see. He's still painting there. Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to bring that out a little more. But then, see, it's always just back and forth. Put it on, take it off, just to get this balance just right. Thank you, Marion. Thank you, Michelle. Okay. So 1 minute left to go here. Oh yeah, I decided to darken behind this red barn a little more, just so the truck comes out a little more. But it's a tiny area. But I see why I did it. Okay.
Looks great.
Yeah, this is pretty much it now.
And every watercolor painting, especially when I paint, goes through a phase where you think, oh, this is not going to work out. And you keep working, and yeah, it did turn out. Looks pretty good.
Yeah, I think I'll sign it now, yeah. So I show that too. I just put a little white into that blue mix and just sign it with the old brush there. Yeah, the green part of the mountain was too dark. Yeah, it does look too dark when you apply it, and then it dries much lighter, right? So it's always that's one of the big problems with watercolor painting, that your values actually change as they dry. I think that's one of its biggest drawbacks, really. Okay, I think this is it. Um, that's definitely the end of it. So I want to thank everyone who's still here um, for watching and for coming tonight.
Oh, thank you, Frank. That was a beautiful painting.